and so on. And that's our situation today. Risks are exploding everywhere, and we rely on scientists to cope with them. Here lies the problem. Scientific experts are supposed to know, but they do not know. The spread of science in our societies has two unexpected features. We more and more rely on experts, even in the most intimate domains of our experience, sexuality, religion. But this all-presence of science transforms scientific knowledge into an inconsistent field of multiple opinions. The symptom here is, did you notice, the use of a very weird term for somebody educated in traditional science, expert opinion. Sorry, but when I was young, we ordinary people had opinions. Experts simply told us this is how it really is. Today, we have expert opinions. The paradigmatic category which reveals this helplessness of science is the category of limit value. You know, this is a nice mode of scientific fetishization. As if, you know, we are told if the global warming, apropos global warming, if the temperature will go out more than 2 degrees, then it's catastrophe. But are we aware that these are purely contingent fixations which really don't mean anything? What is the problem here? Our growing freedom and control over nature, our survival itself, depend on a series of stable natural parameters which we automatically take for granted. Temperature, composition of the air, sufficient water, energy supply, and so on. We can do what we want only insofar as we remain marginal enough so that we don't seriously perturb the parameters of the life on Earth. This limitation of our freedom becomes palpable with ecological disturbances, which are the outcome of the very exponential growth of our freedom and power. Our growing ability to transform nature around us can destabilize the very basic geological parameters of the life on Earth. The fact that humankind is becoming a geological agent on the Earth indicates that, as some geologists think, a new geological era is beginning. Some scientists call it Anthropocene. For example, with the recent devastating earthquakes in the interior of China, what's the problem there? There are good reasons to think that the main cause, or at least the unexpected strength of these earthquakes, was the construction of the gigantic Three Gorges dams nearby, which resulted in large new artificial lakes. The additional pressure on the surface of the Earth seems to influence the balance of the underground cliffs and thus contribute to the earthquake. So even something as elementary as the earthquake could be included into the scope of phenomena influenced by human activity. But wait a minute, the situation is even more complex. I'm now not preaching the idea that we humans are guilty for everything and so on. This is also a too easy way out. We like to be guilty, since if we are guilty, then it all depends on us. We pull the strings of the catastrophe, so we can also save ourselves by simply changing our lives. What is really difficult for us to accept is that we are reduced to a purely passive role of an impotent observer who can only sit and watch what his fate will be. To avoid such a situation, we are prone to engage in frantic, obsessive activity. We recycle old paper, we buy organic food. I claim that we have here an interesting structure of, again, fetishist disavowal. I claim that in ecology we have two modes of disavowal. The one mode of disavowal is we don't take the catastrophe seriously. It's the je sais bien mais quand même, I know very well, but in the sense of I know very well there is global warming, but let's face it, we don't, in our guts, how to put it, we don't really believe it. You know, some stupid scientist, I admire them, is telling you, oh, global warming, you agree with him, then you go out, you see the sun, the wind, the trees, and you say, my God, can this really change? it cannot. The conclusion from this is pretty paradoxical, I claim. It is that I'm here totally opposed to so-called deep ecology, which claims we are too alienated by science, reducing nature to an object of scientific manipulation, domination. We need to regain our beings of the earth, breeding together with our environs. No, I claim that's the source of the catastrophe. We can do horrible things we don't know, probably through science manipulation, but we are not ready to accept the consequences precisely because we are still, as it were, wired to the earth. I think we need more denaturalization. We have to bear in mind the utter fragility of nature. We have to get radically rid of this, of the idea of nature as, Mother Earth, kind of a caught in some kind of a harmonious circulation, stability, homeostasis, and so on, which we humans have, with our hubris, have undermined. I mean, Earth is a horror, nature is a horror also. Think about oil. Can you imagine what kind of catastrophes there must have been on our Earth so that we have oil supplies and so on? Now, the message of this is not, since there is no natural balance, we can do whatever we want. No, I'm for radical ecology. But the point is that the situation is much more tense. We cannot even fall back on some firm standard, like we just have to return to that point. There is no balance. This is, I think, the lesson of the good dialectical Darwinists like Stephen Jay Gould. There is no evolution, there is no natural balance. Nature itself is a series of catastrophes. So again, one problem with ecology is that we know it, there is a threat of catastrophe, but we don't really accept it. We, in a way, don't believe it. The situation is here the same as the one wonderfully described by Bergson and others at the outset of World War I. I mean, politicians, everyone was drawing attention to it for 30 years, from 1880s, that the big European war is near, will explode. But people really didn't believe that it can happen. So that's one disavowal. But there is also the opposite disavowal, which also is interesting. Namely, the opposite one. We know that with some catastrophes, even if they are man-made, we as individuals cannot really do anything. But we are not ready to accept this totally passive position, so we like to engage in what I like to call pseudo-activity. I think that, sorry if this hurts you, but I think that often when we recycle and buy organic food, it's a little bit like, when you have a baseball or soccer match, you watch it at home on TV and you shout, yes, do it, in this kind of superstitious activity, as if you are doing something to help your guys win. You know it's stupid, but you do it. I claim it's also that dimension, precisely this pseudo activity. So, to conclude, if you just allow me another 5 minutes, my first concluding point is that things are much too serious for such recycling games. Humanity should get ready to live in a much more plastic, nomadic way. What do I mean? Are we aware what is happening? Probably, in all probability, and I'm not saying 2012 will be the end of the world. I'm much more optimistic here. But nonetheless, we are obviously approaching the time where large migrations population migrations will be necessary. And we are simply lacking proper mechanisms to do this. For example, in some parts of the world, the desert is spreading. On the other hand, we learned that because of global warming, the whole of northern Siberia in Russia will probably become much more inhabitable. Who will organize? How will it be done, these large movements of populations? In the past, this is nothing new in the history of humanity. It was often done. But how? through spontaneous migration, which meant millions of death, war, and so on and so on. We know that we cannot afford this because of weapons of mass destruction and so on. So we need some kind of a trans-state global mechanism to regulate it. Who will do this and so on? Now, you will probably say, all this is utopia. It can't be done. It's impossible. Here, just to conclude, I have another nice point. Namely, did you notice how ambiguous the term impossible is today? How ambiguously it is used in our everyday ideological practice? On the one hand, concerning private pleasures, freedoms, and scientific achievements, everything is possible. You know, we are told, I don't know, soon we will be able to grow genetically, to grow organs, to live eternally, to download everything, to enhance our physical, psychic activities, and so on, whatever, to travel to moon, whatever you want. So practically, almost everything is possible. But did you notice how, at the same time, when you touch social economic relations, more and more we are taught, oh, sorry, but 1980, the disintegration of communism was the end of utopias. We maturely accept, you know, the impossibility. It's like, to be slightly ironic, they already make in New York, they cut your penis, you have 2 penises. You can screw yourself, turn it around, whatever you want. All this is possible, but a little bit of a change in healthcare is not possible. No? That's a catastrophe. And maybe, just maybe, I'm saying the time has come, the time has come to change this, to claim maybe it's wise to allow a little bit more impossibilities in that region. Maybe, in spite of what some technological agnostics are telling us, we will nonetheless never really become like software, just downloading ourselves from one to another hardware and just survive eternally. But maybe we can do something, and we will have to do something at the social, ecological level. This is what Lacan means by his notion of real impossible. It's not this opportunistic impossible like, oh, you cannot touch it. No, Lacan's point is not this cheap publicity, everything is possible. But from time to time, impossible happens. Impossible means you do something which within the existing universe, ideological universe, appears impossible, but while doing it, you, as it were, create its own possibility. You do it as a crazy, risky wager, and through the act itself, it becomes possible. This is what we need. So let me really conclude now with just a simple duality. On the one, there are in French 2 words for future, and you find them also in German and in my own language, Slovene, but as far as I know, I don't think you find them in English. It's futur and avenir. And I would like simply to conclude with this. Futur stands for future as the continuation of the present, as the full actualization of the tendencies which are already here. While avenir points more towards a radical break, a discontinuity with the present. Avenir is what is to come, avenir, not just what will be. For example, if you say the future prime minister, it can be that it will be the same as now. But if you say in French, le premier ministre à venir, it doesn't mean the same. And I think that this is our fate today. In today's situation, the ultimate horizon of the future is what Dupuy and other theorists of catastrophes call the dystopian fixed point, some virtual